Hi theory students. Today we're going to be talking about vocal forms. We'll break this down into two parts. We'll talk about the text that gets set and what a basic song structure is like, and then we'll talk about other vocal forms as well. The first place to look is at the form of an actual poem, because after all, that's what's being set when we have a song. This is from a genre of German songs called Lieder. Lieder is just the German word for songs, plural. And this is a famous one by Robert Schumann. The poem is by Heinrich Heine, and it's called Im wunderschönen Monat Mai. And if you read the poem, Im wunderschönen Monat Mai, als alle Knospen sprangen, da ist in meinem Herzen die Liebe aufgegangen. That's one verse. The second verse, Im wunderschönen Monat Mai, als alle Vögel sangen, da hab ich ihr gestanden, mein Sehnen und Verlangen. And that's the second verse. So the first thing we want to look at when we talk about verses, technical term for that, we call that a strophe. That comes from the Greek. And here's the first strophe. And here's the second one. And then we can talk about the couplets, which are pairs of lines, and each strophe or verse has two couplets. The rhyme scheme would be the pattern of rhymes at the end of each line. So the English translation would not necessarily have the rhyme scheme unless it were considered not a literal translation but a poetic translation. This translation here is a literal translation. So here, im wunderschönen Monat Mai, als alle Knospen sprangen, da ist in meinem Herzen die Liebe aufgegangen. So lines 2 and 4 are the ones that rhyme. So hence our rhyme scheme, A ends in Mai, B, sprangen, C, Herzen, not rhyming with Mai, and then the last one, aufgegangen, which rhymes with sprangen. So that's why this is A. The second strophe has the first line repeated, so that has the same rhyme scheme of A. Sangen is the same rhyme scheme as sprangen and aufgegangen. And then a new one, gestanden, is different, so we put a letter D there. And then verlangen is our B scheme, so every other line of this poem has the same rhyme scheme. Parallelism of text. Repeated words or similar change in narrative voice in two or more strophes. So having the first line of each verse, Im wunderschönen Monat Mai, is a parallelism of text. Objective or subjective stance, third-person narrative versus personal reflection. Let's look at the English translation of this so that you can see what we mean. The first couplet of each verse is describing a situation that anyone might witness out in nature. In the lovely month of May when all the buds were bursting. And then the next two lines are a personal thing that one person may be experiencing and that they have to tell us all. Then within my heart love began to blossom. The second strophe has the same objective and subjective structure. The first couplet, in the lovely month of May when all the birds were singing, and now to the subjective couplet, then I confessed to her my longing and desire. A strophic form is one that uses the same music, both melody and accompaniment, for each strophe of a song. Example would be the songs Das Wandern or Morgengruß from Schubert's Die Schöne Müllerin, and we'll look at some of the songs from that song cycle in this unit. One way you could tell that it's a strophic form, think about a hymn, for example, in which the verses of text are underneath the same bit of music, and you'll see the verses labeled 1, 2, 3, and 4, saying, in effect, fit the same exact melody to each of the different words of the verses. That's a strophic form. Text painting would be a musical portrayal of either a natural thing, like a brook or a galloping horse, or an emotion or other concept usually tied to a specific word or words in the poem. So if the poem talks about a brook, and we have an accompaniment like this, the accompaniment there is imitating the sound of the brook, and that would be an example of text painting. Now on to talk about other vocal forms. In a modified strophic form, each strophe may start the same way musically, but then the ending may change. This leads to a kind of coherence where the listener can hear where each strophe begins, but then the composer is free to do different things in each strophe. A through-composed form, the music for each strophe is different. There may be musical motives that are the same throughout, but there's not an exact copy of the beginning of each strophe, musically speaking. The best example of this one would be Schubert's Der Erlkönig, and we'll look at that one in class as well. The Baroque especially, but not exclusively, has three-part song forms. In a three-part song form, there's a clear delineation into three sections of music. And a typical scheme would be ABA or ABA prime, or AAB. Much less commonly to have three very different ones, ABC. The Baroque da capo aria is the best-known example of the ABA form, in which the B section would be in a different key entirely and maybe a different mood, and then a direction is given to go back and sing the A section, so it wouldn't even be printed out separately. You just go back and sing the first section so that the total form would then be A, B, A. Recitative is sung dialogue, often in opera, but could be in oratorio as well, and it's meant to give melodic inflection to the normal cadences of speech. It often precedes an aria. Since most dialogue is not in poetic form, the recitative is free form in order to fit the lines of text, and most often the accompaniment sustains the chords with very few changes, and the singer is given a certain amount of rhythmic freedom to sing the text. Imagine I'm going to improvise something right now to give you an idea how it works. So I'll lay a chord down. Right now, I am going to demonstrate recitativo. It has the form of these chords, but I am just speaking the text. Notice that I can move to other places harmonically and resolve when I am ready. I can change the mood by changing the mode, and when I change the mode, I can change back and do what I'd like and move on before the cadence. And there we go. That's an example of a recitative. The recitative secco would use the harpsichord or other non-sustaining instruments to play chords that punctuate the vocal lines. Recitativo accompagnato uses the orchestra to play the sustained chords and would typically be more rhythmically set and less free, because in order to get the orchestra to follow, there has to be more predictability to what the singers are doing. We'll look at all of these examples in much more detail when we do the unit, but that's the basic terminology for this chapter on vocal forms. That's all for today.